Meeting to order. I'll ask Commissioner Stewart if you lead us in the invocation and the pledge, please.
Please rise and join us. Before we start, I want to wish our fellow Commissioner Hess a very happy birthday today, and I think you're turning 30, right?
That's it, 30.
Happy birthday.
Please join me. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day that you've given us, Lord, to come here and to do the work of the county. Lord, I just ask that you bless us, give us wisdom and guide us tonight, Lord, as we make decisions. Lord, we just ask that you bless each one here. We ask these things in your holy name. Amen.
Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all for coming out tonight. If you'd like to speak, you can speak on each individual scheduled agenda item. Please fill out a speaker card on each one. Additionally, you have a citizens to be heard opportunity. You can speak either at the one at the beginning or at the end, at your preference. And when you come up, if you will, speak clearly into the microphone. Give us your name and your address so the folks at home can hear as well. Do we have any changes to the agenda?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. For awards and presentations, I'd like to add the OR presentation. Also, for general business, I'd like to add the item for consideration of the adopted infrastructure plan.
Very good. Any other changes?
Motion to approve the agenda is modified.
Second. Motion second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0. Next, we'll start out the citizens to be heard. None there. Everyone's here for the presentation.
Here we go.
So at this time, we'll ask Mr. Richard Powell to come up.
Yeah.
Hey, wait.
Welcome, sir.
Good. It's hard with this big build-up to to go through, but I'll try.
Did every county give you this well of a reception?
No. This is warm. It's a pleasure delivering the annual audit of Wakulla County. Just a quick overview. County audit is a separate audit of each constitutional officer and the board, then the compilation of all of those reports and information in the overall, which is the first section of the audit. Audit are performed basically throughout the year. We do interim work in the summer and then finish up after year end. So we have performed the audit. Your staff prepared the financial statements and notes. So I'll give you an overview, and I saw that I had 10 minutes. I hope I can fill that up. And
Have to if you don't want. That's the maximum right now.
a bell goes off. So I'm going to follow something I heard a few years ago from Greg James that I've repeated all over the state, that the audit report's 280 pages long, but everything you need to know is on about 5 or 6 pages, and so I'll try to dwell on those. On page 2 and 3 is the audit opinion. It states it's a complete audit of the county, conducted in accordance with applicable auditing standards that include the financial auditing standards, the government auditing standards, in your case the federal single audit standards and the state single audit standards. So that's 5 levels of required audit procedures. In an audit, what you seek is a clean, unmodified opinion that states that the financial statements are an accurate reflection of how the county stood at the end of the fiscal year, what transpired financially during the year. You have that highest level of assurance, which is a good reflection on the quality of the financial records and practices of the county. On page 22, the county has 2 types of funds, governmental funds and enterprise business type funds. So we'll first look at the governmental funds. And governmental funds follow fund accounting, which I call cash accounting. It's basically your liquid assets and liabilities. The total assets of the governmental funds were $14,937,405. Total liabilities, $2,620,405. Fund balances or cash reserves. Total $12,317,000. Of that, if you look over in the general fund, the first column, the unassigned fund balance, $3,167,816. The assigned, which is basically under control of the board, 769,048. The total of those represents a little over 2.5 months worth of expenditures, so that is an improvement over time in Wakulla County, and that's getting up to an acceptable level of the minimum level of reserves, so that's good. The next page 23 is the statement of revenues, expenditures, and changes in fund balance on these governmental funds. Total revenues $30,346,018. Total expenditures $29,795,771. You had some transfers in and out, and some other miscellaneous revenues. And the bottom line, if you look in the last column, 3 numbers up, that you increased fund balances in this year $771,778. So I look back a few years, and so that's been the trend for at least the last, I think, 4 years. So you're building back up your reserves to good levels. The next statement on page 25 is the balance sheet of the enterprise funds. The intent of enterprise funds is to operate off of user charges so that you don't have to divert your general revenues to fund these types of operations. A balance sheet of an enterprise fund is called a statement of net position. The total assets, $18,582,046. The current assets are the liquid spendables, $1,015,973. Total assets, $18,582,046. The total liabilities, $4,878,438. The net position is basically your equity, the net worth of these operations. And the total equity is $13,703,608. The unrestricted equity, the total is $100,365, which is good, and due to the fact that in prior years it was negative, so that is an improvement. But obviously, these operations you need to continue to build equity in. The ratio of liquidity is the comparison with current assets, the current liabilities. Yours is moving up to now where it's close to 1-to-1, so again, that's an improvement. On page 26 is the statement of revenues, expenses, and changes in net position. The total operating revenues, again, those are just user charges, $4,422,554. Total expenses, and if you look, including depreciation, $4,167,105. So just through operations, you were positive $255,449, which includes covering depreciation of $665,473. You had some grants and you had some other types of expenditures in there. And the change in net position, again, 3 numbers up from the bottom, you were positive $470,943. So again, in these funds, you were stronger at the end of the year than at the beginning of the year. Now I'm going to some notes, disclosures that are important. On page 49 is a table that shows the capital assets of the county, again categorized as the governmental and business type enterprise. In the governmental, the assets at cost $99,978,021, almost hitting the $100 million mark. Accumulated depreciation $40,608,888. Net assets $59,369,133. What does that tell you? Your assets are about 40% depreciated. I used to say that the average of counties were about 30-35. As years go on now, average is about 40. So they're, because depreciation hits every year. Business type assets at cost $27,345,716. Accumulated depreciation $9,779,644. Net assets $17,566,072. These assets are about 36% depreciated, so these are probably a little newer than other comparable assets. If you look in the table right across at the bottom that shows depreciation, total depreciation in the county for the year is $3.9 million. And if you look at, and I've been pointing this out to some of the counties, that your transportation, which is mainly your roads, are depreciating a little over $1.5 million a year. So that's just the kind of using up, and that's a reason that it's good to have a road paving program, which Wakulla County has had and has been blessed to have some of the grants that you've had to do that. Okay, the next table on page 57 is a table that says changes in long-term liabilities. In the prior years, all of these were like loans and bond issues and all, but now of the governmental again, the balance at the end of the year was $23,309,881, but the loan portion, the debt portion, was only $1,647,339, and the debt went from $2,350,000 to the $1.6 million. It decreased about $703,000. But when you look at now, as we discussed last year, the county is required to record its pro rata portion of FRS, Florida Retirement System, in your financial statements. At the end of the year, the FRS liability was $19,734,123, and it increased from $11,351,000. So it's not likely you will be asked to write a check to fund your portion, but it means that those rates will continue to increase. The liabilities in your enterprise funds, the total at the end of the year, $593,555, and and you just had some notes payable. It's the biggest amount of that. The ending balance, $4,082,560, and of that, the notes were $2,278,267. Okay, so financially, the county had a good year. You were stronger at the end of the year than at the beginning of the year. You lived within your budgetary resources. The balance of the audit, as I mentioned, we did audit procedures required by various rules. On page 110 is our report regarding audit procedures required by government auditing standards. These go beyond financial issues and include internal control over financial reporting, compliance with various laws, regulations. This report has no findings or question costs in it. On page 112, 113 is the equivalent report regarding audit procedures required by the federal single audit standards. These audit procedures extend more and require various compliance procedures regarding the major grants, federal grants. This report has no findings or question costs. 114, 115 is the report regarding audit procedures required by federal single audit. Again, extended compliance procedures on the various state grants. This findings has no findings or question costs, this report. On page 116, 117 is the schedule of the federal grants that you had. Federal grants for the year were $2,318,797. On page 1819 are your state grants, $2,538,414. The total grants, $4,857,000. 212. I'd like to point out that for each of these grants, you had to have separate records and reporting and everything, and so and if you have 4 pages of small type of grants, you had a lot of grants in this year, but that you were able to have $5 million in various improvements in the county without having to pay for it out of taxes. So it's very, very worthwhile. But it's a hardship, not a hardship, but it's a challenge on your staff and all to keep good records, and all of the officers too. Okay, finally, on page 123 through 125 is the combined management letter on the county and each constitutional officer. In this, the management letter is regulated by rules of the Auditor General of Florida. It includes findings, recommendations that are not material to the financial statements, but areas with which we wish to make you aware. Always look at the status of any prior findings and see if there's any new findings. Pleased as to the Board of County Commissioners that the prior year finding regarded late deposit of cash receipts was substantially corrected in the current year. There were no new or any reportable findings in the current year. Clerk, no reportable findings in the prior year, no reportable findings in the current year. Property appraiser, no reportable findings in the prior year, no reportable findings in the current year. Sheriff, no reportable findings in the prior year, no reportable findings in the current year. Supervisor of elections, no reportable in the prior year, no reportable findings in the current year. Tax collector, no reportable findings in the prior year, no reportable findings in the current year. The annual report that's filed electronically with the state is in agreement with the audit report. We determined that the county had not met any of the conditions described that would create a financial emergency. We did financial condition assessment procedures. I've given you the highlights. The county did not have deteriorating financial conditions during the year. We've reviewed all this information with appropriate parties. On page 126, we're required to do audit procedures regarding the county's investment of funds, its handling of E91 board information, some various issues with the clerk, and in all of those we had no findings. On page 127, 128 is the board's response to the audit, which I have read, and I believe is an appropriate response. So be pleased to answer any questions the board may have.
Questions? Absolutely riveting. Michelle, was I right?
Continuing to improve and no new problems.
Everything's good.
Well, I wouldn't say everything's good, but there were it is. Everything is improving, and auditors don't like to say everything's good. You know, that goes counter to what an auditor would say.
I'm like a lawyer.
Then we wouldn't need you, right?
That's true, yeah.
Any questions, comments?
I have a question for David. When will we get rid of that sewer fund of the landfill closing?
Not in our lifetime.
30 years, I think you did.
Yeah.
Now, we did, however, have to stop monitoring MedArt.
Right, but it
go away eventually.
still costs us a little bit of money, but yeah, it'll eventually go away, but it's going to be there.
It'll be in my lifetime, hopefully.
Not well,
Maybe not yours.
It won't be in mine or yours, it may be in Randy's.
Anything else? Well, thank you, sir.
Thank you so much.
Very much.
Thank you.
I'll be your age when it goes away, Jerry. That answers your question.
that's an insult to all the old people.
All right. Next, Miss Joanna Johnson, give a presentation regarding the drug program for indigent families in Wakulla County.
Hello.
Welcome.
I'm not sure how to do this, but we'll see. My name is Joanne Johnson. I own the Avalon Treatment Centers. I have been in Wakulla County for 20 years. We carry a responsibility for not only assessing the different people who are coming in with severe drug problems, but also placement in treatment centers. In the last 20 years, we have done 13,000 assessments. If that gives you an idea of the seriousness of the problem that I'm bringing to you, I want you to understand why I've come. I've come because one of the major problems that we have in Wakulla County, and it's all here, but I'm not even going to follow this, is that our indigent people from Panacea and a lot of other areas cannot afford treatment. And because they can't afford treatment, they either go incarcerated or they end up in situations that the Department of Children and Family become involved in. So it's not the lack of wanting, it's the lack of financial support. Other counties in this state put money into indigent programs for treatment. It's not a big expense, but it certainly is a commitment that Wakulla County has never made to the people who put you in office, but also have the need for working through this disease. Addiction is not a choice, it is a disease. It right now in this county, methamphetamine and opiates, prescribed mostly by doctors to begin, and then becoming a serious street problem, touches 1 out of every 3 families. That means, I'm sure, gentlemen, somebody in your family or somebody that you know has problems with this or has struggled with this. If we don't find a way to help the indigents to be able to get the same treatment care that some of us who are more blessed and been able to afford good insurance can have, then our numbers are just going to grow, and the retention problem that is going to happen to our young people, because my agency is now on 4th generation. I have had grandfathers, fathers, sons, and now I have their sons. 4 generations, because I've been here 20 years. It's time that I think you gentlemen start looking at how the community can help and how you can get involved with treatment through either some of your grants or possibly just by coordinating some funds and making them available for drug treatment, or at least for the possibility of drug education. You've never done that. We've never done it in Wakulla County. I get calls, I don't know, 5, 6 times a day. My centers here in Wakulla, Franklin, and certainly Leon County, we are servicing people from serious methamphetamine problems to mental health problems that are treated as criminals. Mental health is not a criminal. It is a person that has to have, and in some times self-medicating with different drugs. If you would look at the seriousness of this problem for our county, you would realize that it doesn't take a lot of money, but it takes a commitment to at least look at treatment as a priority for this commission. These are your neighbors, your families, and our county. And I believe that it's about time, and I represent not only all my clients, but the other providers that do not get any support from this chamber or anybody else. We're sort of left to whoever can afford to come. And I think that's unfair, and I think it's time that it change. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Questions, comments? Thank you very much. Next, we'll hear from the Organization for Artificial Reefs, or afternoon.
I'm Alan Richardson. I'm chairman of the Organization for Artificial Reefs. We're a private reef building group out of Tallahassee, and we primarily, our activities are centered in Wakulla and Franklin counties. We were approached by the Panacea waterfront people to do, and they do the Rock the Dock tournament. They wanted to build a reef offshore and they wanted to contribute the funds to do it. So, number one, this is no cost to Wakulla County. They've retained us to help them with the permitting and possible funding, and also fundraising and possibly grants, securing state, federal grants to do these. I was hoping Bill Horn's on his way here, but they had a traffic accident north of Walmart, so he's not here, obviously. But I'll call on Rob Buda. He's our research dive team coordinator, and Bill Michler is also one of our board members. He's back here in the back too. So we've built a lot of reefs in over the years, we've been in existence since 1982, and we've built roughly 30 reefs in Wakulla and Franklin counties. How do you use this thing? I've never done this. You just it's forward. Yeah, so that's a little bit about how 85. Okay, Bill's got it right. These are the reefs that we've got in Wakulla County presently. We just built the St. Mark's Reef, or enhanced it last year. We partnered with the city of St. Mark's and secured 2 grants. We did 2 $50,000 grants. Actually, one was 60, one was 50. So we just built that reef last year, or 2014, 2015. And the reefs that we're looking to do now with the Panacea Waterfront is actually going to re-permit Rotary Reef, which you can see it there off to the left, about in the middle. And also at the very bottom, or not the very bottom, but close to the bottom, is Marker 24 Barge Reef. We're going to re-permit both those sites and add additional material to it, as well as we're going to site another reef offshore in about 60 feet of water for deeper habitat. But our mission lately has been going into state waters to do it, because DEP's been extremely easy to work with. Here's a history of Wakulla County reefs, and we've got 1 active permit now, which is St. Mark's Reef, but as I said, we're going to re-permit 2 more. This is the Marker 24 barge. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but it's an existing reef. It was a barge that overturned, and we went out and we've added material on it, and we partnered with Wakulla County back in 1999. What was the other year? Was it 99 and 2003? I think that we've worked with Wakulla County in the past, and that's one of the reasons we're here, is to reintroduce ourselves. We've been working with Franklin County and also with the city of St. Mark's, and we haven't partnered with Wakulla County itself, but we've been doing it with the municipalities. And our group, we have to have a sovereign entity in order to permit these sites, and that's why we're here. This is the Marker 24 re-permit we're talking about doing, and it's roughly about a 60-acre site, I believe, or is it 50 acres? 50 acres, 60? Anyway, we'll have enough room to put quite a bit of material in that area. It's a 1/4 mile by 1/4 mile, statute mile, and that's what's in there now, and we're proposing to fill up that whole 1/4 mile with material over the next 10-year period. The permits that we get from the Corps of Engineers are good for 10 years, so we'll be able to, have quite a bit of time to work on it. And this is the kind of thing we're putting there. The barge is there now, and that's the type of material that we've got. We have to maintain a 17-foot navigational clearance when we do it. And these are the type of materials that we're going to be using on it. Prefabricated reef modules and reused concrete where we can get it and transport it. And these are the 4 areas that we're doing on Marker 24, the circular areas, but we'll be filling in around it. Now, one of the things that we always tout is that the artificial reef program, we've been able to show that for every dollar we spend, it returns about $131 to the coastal communities. And one of the things we're doing this year too is we've moved the Saltwater Classic from Carabel to St. Mark's this year, and that's our tournament that we do every year that supports SOAR. So it'll be in St. Mark's and next, what is it, the 16th? It's Shields Marina on the 16th. Anyway, that's it. The reason we're here is just to try to, you want to add anything, Rob? The main reason we're here is just to partner with the county on this, and we're acting as agent, for these reefs, and it's not a cost to the county, but it's Panacea Waterfronts, they're going to help us with the cost of initially permitting it. Go ahead.
I have some questions, and I asked David this today.
Yes, Jerry.
And with you folks, I don't know why we haven't been partnering with you. I've been talking to 6 years about this to try to get an artificial reef or reefs in Wakulla County. Why can't we do that? Why? Now, David tells me today that we're going to use some BP funds and maybe partner with you folks.
We applied for a NERDA grant through the city of Carabel, and we applied for $259,000 through NERDA with Carabel. And so we're waiting to hear how that goes. And once we get these if we have a permitted reef site, which we don't have any right now, we filled up St. Mark's, it's full. So if we have a couple more permitted sites, then we can apply for those grants. And
I can ask David, why have we not partnered with them on
Well,
something?
our plan is going with Gulf and Franklin and Wakulla and a large-scale master plan for all artificial reefs, and that will include ore, but that is our plan right now, to be able to focus. That way we're getting money from surrounding counties to come in and partner together and us all do one big, huge, massive program.
Yeah. Can you give, I know it's a little early, but instead of basically just talking about it, can we get started on finding how much money we're going to use?
We started the conversation with all the other counties. That's in process.
some counties have an artificial reef
Right.
coordinator, the bigger counties do, and we, as a volunteer group, I work a job, we work during the day.
Yeah.
So we do all this on our own time. We're all volunteer. There's no cost. There's no salaries, no overhead. I mean, we pay an office, and that's all we do. We're all volunteer. And we just kind of fill a void for the smaller counties that don't have the money for an artificial reef coordinator or an artificial reef
Right.
program,
We'll
and that's
be
where we
using them
stepped in.
to help out.
I mean, we're just helping
I
out.
want to basically see us commit to reefs. I don't think there's anything we can do on our coast,
Mhm.
really, nothing that we can do on our coast that would be more important.
I agree. We're right there with you.
So you mentioned that St. Mark's is full. What does that mean?
Oh,
Are they-
the permitted area that we had there.
So
Now,
they're
we're-
required to be a certain distance from each other, or?
No, we had a permitted site. It was the old St. Mark's Reef.
Oh, just that side is full.
Just that
I
site.
got you.
We just filled it up, and and that was 2 grants we got from FWC.
Okay.
FWC's got a pretty active grant program. We apply for them periodically.
I had someone ask me about, I think 24 is coming up for reauthorization or something of that nature.
Yeah, that's us doing it. Yeah, we've
Okay.
applied. We have not applied to the Corps because we have to do that on behalf. Wakulla County is the permittee, so Wakulla County holds a permit.
This
We're
particular,
just the agent for the county.
this particular person was talking about renaming 24 for,
Well, there's patch reefs within there. One example is we permitted a reef site called the St. Teresa Reef, and that's right off of it's in Franklin County. But in the center of the St. Teresa Reef system was Price's Point Reef. That was a private reef. The family raised the funds, and we deployed this big steel cross there, 40 by 20 steel cross, and they raised their own money and did it. But that's a patch reef within the larger reef. So the Marker 24 barge that could be the main reef, and a patch reef could have its own name. I mean, we've got one reef within the St. Mark's. It's one module, but it's got its own name. And, we do that all the time, and we give naming rights to different things.
So if you
And the
wanna
county
pay-
has
if you
that
want to pay
option.
for it, you can name it.
Yeah, exactly.
lift station.
Yeah.
Yeah, we could do the Jerry Moore Reef. How much money you got?
Good answer.
Be more than one.
Is LB making these modules now?
He was making modules through another contractor, but we're not associated with that. And we have talked to him about, there's another contractor that's willing to work with him on that, so there are some opportunities there to do
Of
that.
course, anytime we can buy local.
Oh, yeah, I understand. And the limestone comes from Jefferson County, too, that they use on these things. So it's...
what's the cost of a decent reef? I know it varies or whatever, but let's just say
$60,000.
that'd get you how many modules?
They're running about $2,000 a piece for the
It's a 30
8-foot tall
30 modules spread
modules.
out
Yeah,
over the
they're
bottom.
different prices. The little short ones,
Yeah.
the cubes are $270 a piece, and those are 3 by 3 with a big circular hole in it. We've done a lot of those. St. Mark's has a lot of those, and then they have these other ones, a little short, call them ecosystem reefs. They have a lot of limestone. They look like pancakes. Those are about $2,100 a piece.
How well do the old
$1,700.
culverts work?
They're great. They're great grouper habitat. Grouper love them. Yeah, the grouper get up inside of them and hide. They bury down in the sand a little bit. Those are great habitat. We love.
Probably get those free, can't you?
The problem is transporting them to the port, and luckily St. Mark's has a port now we can use that's deep. They have a municipal port there. We can load there, and that's the biggest thing is the transport, loading it, getting it offshore. deploying it. We have to dive it. Our dive team dives the site. They make sure that there's no live bottom, and I mean live bottom like active coral. It has to be what's the substrate? 30 sandy substrate on a hard bottom, so the culverts don't just sink down into the sand. And luckily, Marker 24 is a good area, and so is Rotary. Rotary still is it's a big area, but we're going to expand it, make it a nicer reef. And we deployed a 110-foot long barge last year at Carabel 10 Mile Reef, as well as that was a project that we did at the same time we did Price's Point, and that was a big cross we did the next day in Franklin County. So we're active, and we just want to help. So
What are we doing with the big barge that we're hauling out that we got the grant for?
We were not able to collect that one in time for the grant run out.
Okay.
So, but that was FWC made us would have made us demolish it.
But it's still there?
It's still there, but FWC's got it tied up in some legal action right now.
is that the one at Shell Island, or?
Yeah.
Yeah, that one's got a lot of habitat around it, and they get a lot of grass and stuff, and it goes pulling that
There's
out.
some interesting stuff going on with that.
Yeah, I know about that. But yeah, that's the reason we're here, is just to ask for your permission, to sign as permittee, basically Wakulla County will hold the permit for these two reefs.
An agenda item you're bringing back later, an action item?
Yes.
Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I do have some little brochures that I can leave with the clerk for the commissioners and whoever else wants them. It's a little bit of informational stuff about us, so I'll do that. You guys have anything else? Or?
Thank you.
Question?
We
Comment?
appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you all. Y'all have a good day.
You too.
You coming?
Oh, and I do have an agreement dating back to 1999 that I gave to Cherie, and you've provided it to them. So we've already got a memorandum of understanding with Wakulla County. It's dated back a few years, but it's still valid. But thank you for your time.
Good. Thank you. Do we have a motion to approve
Move
the
consent approval?
Do we have a second?
Aye. Second.
All right, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0. All right, we didn't pull any items on consent, so we'll go into general business. Start out with item number 12.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, this agenda item requests board approval of a budget amendment and expenditure in the amount of $105,000 related to a pending settlement agreement involving the Wakulla County Sheriff's Office. And Jared Miller's here to answer any questions.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Just a brief background. In 2015, there was some legal action brought against my former predecessor concerning public records requests, Chapter 119 Florida statutes. Obviously, these public records were not dealt with accordingly to the law. I took over January 3rd of 2017, and since then I've been working with County Administrator David Edwards and his staff and my staff. They offered a settlement to us. I've been working with our county administrator, and we have both agreed that it may be in the best interest of the county to go ahead and settle this case. There's 8 different issues that are involved, and 6 of the issues according to my attorney, we have already lost. 2 of those we may be able to argue. I think it's in the best interest of the taxpayers and also this board and the sheriff's office that we move on, get this settled. It's no one on this board's fault or past boards or this administration at the sheriff's office, but I feel strongly that we will lose in the end and we will end up paying more. I also want to let you know that since I've taken off as a sheriff, we have implemented a public records custodian. All public records will go through her. Every single public records will be logged, and we will ensure that those public records are addressed in a timely manner. And that's the problem that we had. in the past. They were not addressed, and they were blatantly, willfully and wantonly, to be honest with you, disregarded. So that's why we had a public records request violation.
Why is the insurance company not covering this, Jared? I think it's an important point.
The Florida Forest Risk Management Fund covers most things. This is one of the things that it does not cover because we broke the law, and it was actually a willful and wanton thing that was done on purpose.
Motion to approve the expenditure.
Second. We have a motion and second. Do we have any citizens? Further discussion from the board?
Thank you.
I guess my only question is there anyone still involved in your administration that had a hand in this, and has that been dealt with?
Commissioner, fortunately for the sheriff's office, there's no one else left at the sheriff's office that was involved in this at all.
Okay, very good. We have a motion second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Passes 5-0.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sheriff. Item number 13.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, this agenda item requests approval of a mutual settlement agreement with Thomas C. Pavey, which would settle pending litigation and allow defendant to satisfy existing code enforcement liens.
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion second. Any citizens to speak? None. Discussion from the board? I've got a comment. I voted against moving forward with this foreclosure back in 2015, and I went back and rewatched the video so I can make sure I have my mind, my memory correct. And I was concerned that we move forward with a case like this, and there were 2 out of the 4 that were similar to this that were low-valued case, and I was worried about us throwing good money after bad on these cases. And I think some of them have worked out just fine. One thing, I looked back at the agenda item when this was voted on back in 2015, and at the time it says each foreclosure case will involve filing fees of $400 and attorney fees for prosecution for each foreclosure, in addition to between $85 and $250 per property in conducting a title search. And then it also talks about all costs and reasonable attorney fees. I think we need to come up with some kind of policy of what would be reasonable fees, because now we've got $16,000 worth of cost here, hard cost, that the taxpayers are bearing the cost for something that was only worth $16,000 to start with. And I know there's times where we've got to ignore the cost and look at health and safety issues, but in this case I feel like we're throwing good money after bad. We've got a very consistent track record of reducing fines when we're requested, but we've always reduced them to the hard cost. And so I'm going to have a hard time voting for this because, the attorneys on this case, they're winning. They're getting their fees. The homeowner is certainly winning. He's getting a reduction. But now we're asking the citizens to pick up the tab to the tune of $11,000. And citizens had nothing to do with any of this. And so I just can't, in good conscience, just shift that cost over to the citizens.
Very sympathetic to what you're saying. I understand. The hard costs are $16,000. We're basically being asked to settle for $5,000. Now, the downside to that is, logically you would say, well, this property is only worth $8,000. Say it's a lot somewhere in Smith Creek, and it's all trashed out. Are we going to stop pursuing code enforcement once we've acquired $8,000 worth of costs, or do we keep trying to get it cleaned up? That's where the quandary comes in. But your point is well taken.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
and you're right. You're right.
Yeah. At some point, the citizens are bearing the cost for this, and they're the only ones losing in this proposed scenario.
I agree with everything you're saying.
So, I mean, I'll throw a couple of alternatives out there. One is, let's not approve what's been submitted to us, and let's approve it at the hard cost. Let's approve it at $16,000, and I guess that's going to be subject to renegotiation and make sure that the property owner is going to accept that. Or, second, and not as desirable, is if we could, let's take the $5,000, let's leave the $11,000 shortage that we have as a lien against the property. That still doesn't make the citizens whole by any means, but if we leave it as a lien against the property, if the property owner ever sells it or borrows money against it, there's a good chance that lien would have to be paid off and the citizens can be made whole. At least there's an opportunity for the citizens to recapture the money on this deal. And I'm sympathetic to the situation. I know we all got an email today, and I'm very sympathetic to the hardship that's being asked of us. But what we're asking, we all know of people in this county that have a hard time paying their taxes now. Look at the tax deeds that were just sold. You know, there's a lot of people that will, you know, forego their taxes because they've got medicine and insurance and other bills. And so effectively we're saying we understand your hardship, but we're going to take it away from these other folks because you're having a hardship. And I just can't get comfortable with that.
If we can put a lien on a piece of property to cover our costs, why do we not do that?
There is a lien on the property. There's currently a lien on the property.
For that amount.
There's liens already there,
Yes.
so we would be in third place?
I don't know what place you are. I don't think there's any mortgage or anything outstanding.
Not that I'm
So
aware of.
you're probably
That'll work.
high in first place. What this is doing, though, would be settling and you'd be releasing that lien if the board decides to go forward. Keep in mind, we reached out numerous times to settle this before we filed anything, got no responses. This case has been litigated to the judgment of foreclosure stage, and then the judge asked us to try to settle one more time.
What was the root issue with the code enforcement? Summer?
Dilapidated structure, number of commercial and inoperable vehicles, and nuisance accumulation. There were a number of code violations that resulted in 2 separate cases. And I would just add that the current outstanding lien amount based on those daily fines is $140,150.
Which we'll never get. And I'm not adverse to Ralph's suggestion of collecting the $5,000 and leave the lien. Now, he could say no, right? And did you guys negotiate in good faith about this and
It's
say-
always contingent on board approval.
and saying, here's, David, do you think this is the best we're gonna get? Is $5,000 or?
Yeah, that was what my takeaway from it, but like I said, that was the best I could do with the information that I had at the time and where we stood, and that's the best that I could get. But like I said, it's up to you guys, and you know, that's a possibility. Look at that. We had actually looked at that, but we were concerned about us being and falling into place and that costing us more money to fall into a lien situation and then not be able to get anything. But y'all can, whatever.
But generally speaking, if we settle, we get 5 of the 11 hard costs back. If
5
we-
of the 16,000 hard costs.
Five of the 16.
5 of the 16.
Right. Mhm.
If we, and he's agreed to give us the 5, whatever. If we just put a lien on the property, and it's already been cleared off, if we put a lien on it, at any time he has to go forward to do anything, he has to clear that out.
Mhm. Depends
Depends
on
on
the
the
lender.
lender.
That's right.
Depends on the lender. And most mortgage lenders that I know, if you know, or title company, if he's getting title insurance, they wouldn't issue title insurance on it with this outstanding lien.
That's right.
Most mortgage companies would not loan money.
That's
Now, that doesn't mean somebody may say, okay, that's just a code enforcement lien, I'll disregard that. Nothing we can do about that, but at least we have an opportunity to recover the people's money.
At some point in time, though, that lien will come back to bite somebody.
It could.
Yeah.
Yeah, good.
It could.
Mhm.
And going forward on these, you know, we could make a conclusion that we could have just left that lien there. And I know when you put the threat of a foreclosure, most of the time people come forward and they get it cleared up. So I get that. But we could, if a situation where we think that there's not enough value to pursue it, you know, we stated in here reasonable attorney fees, is 12,000 reasonable attorney fees for something that's worth 16. I say no, plus 3,000 in hard costs from our staff. So we could at some point say, okay, we're just going to leave the lien out there, and then if someone ever tries to sell it or refinance it, then they'll come square it up at that point.
Well, and you're right, and that was part of negotiating, was looking at the value of the lot.
Right.
And
How do we-
do we need it The answer to that question was no.
Right. The hard
The
cost,
value's not there versus what's invested in it. And so it was along the lines of I got to cut my losses at some point.
How do we put a stop on the attorney fees?
Well, this is the first time we've been upside down in something. This really is. This is the first time we've been
Could
upside
we
down.
go
This
on-
is an old case.
Could we going forward say at such point as time as attorney fees?
Yes, we pulled the trigger a lot quicker, yes, now.
Well,
the attorney fees are Heather, right? Your firm. They're not his attorneys.
That's right.
That's the time that her firm, not her, but her firm took to take this to foreclosure.
Yeah.
Because of a lack of response from the property owner, correct? This could have been resolved a long time ago.
well, if we say that we will upfront 2,000 attorney fees, and at such point in time as that trips,
That's what I was talking
We
about
will-
earlier.
we will
You just
go-
stop working on the code enforcement?
yeah, we don't need to go 12,000.
But I understand that, but what I was saying earlier, one of the purposes of code enforcement is not for that person, but for their neighbors, right?
Correct.
That's why you do this, is you have a dilapidated, broke-down trailer, say in Lake Ellen, with broken windows, and it's causing a concern for kids going over there. That's why you do code enforcement, not to help the guy clean his yard up. So there is a larger public service here, I think.
Yeah, we need to have code enforcement. We need to make sure these places get cleaned up.
Because they're
So
a
the
health
question
hazard.
is how do we do it and not incur costs for the community?
Who pays for it?
And I think this is just one of those things. This is going to happen. This is the first time we're going to lose money on one of these.
Yeah, and we look at it in the aggregate. That's like I say, it's the first time, and I don't like this at all, but
But some of the ones we've done with banks,
this is the first one
We've
we've
had-
actually, yeah.
they've paid the whole
Right, we
fine way above our hard costs,
Yeah,
right, Summer?
yes.
When you deal with a bank. So if you look at the aggregate of code enforcement, yes, citizens are losing some money on this one, but have the citizens made a lot more money on other ones? Yes.
I would agree. Mr. Pavey has filled out a speaker card. Please come forward.
I just wanted to see if you guys had any questions asking me, the property owner. I can give you some background on this if you'd like, or if you had any specific questions you wanted to ask.
Thank you, sir.
I'll ask you, what's the value of property?
I've seen 5 acres sell. Alan Richardson, who was here earlier, is a realtor, and I've seen listings for property similar to this, somewhere $3,000 to $8,000.
Is this property 5 acres?
No, this is much smaller, about a little over 1.
It's on Quail Court.
Yes, sir.
That's a paved road, right?
Yes, sir.
It is now.
One of the few.
Yep. And for the record, I voted against the foreclosure. I don't want the government taking your property by any means. I just have a hard time thinking of us shifting the cost that is now belongs to your property for whatever reason to taxpayers and citizens who had no hand in it, no role in it.
I had no idea there was code violations accruing. No idea. I was here. There were some code violations. I corrected all of them, at least I thought I had. This code violation represents 2 cases. The first one, I paid the administrative fee of $150. I thought I was finished. I went to Orlando. If you read the email, my father passed of cancer, and my mother's handicapped, and I left Wakulla County with this project thinking that it was fine. And I found out about the code violations for the first time when the foreclosure action took place, and I received that paperwork in Orlando. If somehow I'd been notified before it got any further, that's on me. The court found me, but if the Wakulla County found me, we wouldn't be here right now.
So it sounds like this went to court and the judge ordered the mediation attempt.
Yes, sir.
So at some point you knew you were heading to court. Was there ever an attempt to settle this out or solve it before you got before the judge?
Property has been code compliant for quite some time. I have expended a lot of money. The mobile home is gone. It's been demoed. It's been removed from the property. As soon as I found out that there were code violations, I immediately addressed it and brought the property up to code as quickly as I could. And it is code compliant. It's been code compliant since November of last year, I believe.
How many liens do you have? How many mortgages do you have against it?
I believe there's 2.
2?
To mortgages or code enforcement liens?
Code enforcement liens.
Yeah,
How many mortgages?
0, sir.
My motion stands. I say, I agree with you, Ralph, 100%. The citizens are going to lose some money on this one, but they've more than made up for it on other ones. If you look at code enforcement aggregate, they negotiated in good faith, I think, if I were the judge, right, to try to mediate. This is what come out of it. That's my motion. If it fails, then we'll do another motion.
I basically, since we have no liens against the property, we have, at some point, we will be in first position with our lien.
I think we're there
Will that
now.
not be true?
I think we're there now.
If we have the only lien on the property.
Yeah, so we'll be in first position, so anything that happens, we have to get paid. So anything, if a property sells for 11, we get 11.
But it went to foreclosure. That was the purpose, was to own the property so we could sell it, and then the judge said to mediate, right, Heather?
Yes, informal mediation.
Just to inject, if it does go back to foreclosure and the motion is denied, I will seek legal counsel. And I will hire an attorney, and this will continue through the court process. It has not been issued for foreclosure sale at this time. So the door is open for litigation as of right now, and I will pursue that,
I don't
sir.
think that's a very good position to
Well,
take.
basically, with that,
Right, that's your business.
with that attitude, I'm gonna go with Commissioner Merritt. My deal is we file a lien on it, take it where it goes, let it.
So my motion was to agree with the staff recommendation, which is to do the $5,000, I don't know, who seconded it? Chuck, you seconded it?
Chuck seconded.
Take the $5,000 payment, we're owed 16. Y'all feel 5 is probably the best that's ever gonna happen, and let's just get it over with and
That's cutting the losses now. but
be done.
Like I say, but if,
I don't wanna be back here talking about this thing again.
well, I mean, it's not good, it would go straight on to foreclosure, which is fine, it's just, you know, that.
Then we own the
idea was to
property.
cut our losses, this is the best we could do, but if y'all change it, that's fine.
Then we're gonna own the property, then we gotta sell the property, right?
So what's offered is $2,500 within 20 days, and then another $2,500 in 2019. So we're
Right.
looking
I
at
understand.
It's a
a
long-
year and a half to drag this thing out.
Well, we just cut our losses earlier on another issue that we all thought it was best just to move on, and this is another one of those, in my mind. If it fails, then somebody else make a motion, please.
If I may, I'm like you. I hate to see us in this quandary. What I'm more concerned about is that, and we talked today with Summer, is the lesson learned out of it. Moving forward, what do we do to not let this happen again? And she's reassured me that she has a plan that we don't get ourselves in this mess again. And I know that don't make it right. I'm not sure we'll ever recover that money, Ralph. I'm fine with either way. I wish we hadn't gotten here. I wish there had been a cutoff, and I agree. I think there ought to be, they ought to say that 50% of whatever the value of the property is, let's don't litigate past that, or a number that's, whatever number, that we give Summer. What's your guidance now, Summer, as we go forward with these?
Well, I think you need to look at each case on a case-by-case basis. Property values are going to vary.
Right.
Code violations are going to vary, the severity of those violations, and whether the county has to take corrective actions. I think if you want to make a policy moving forward, the cost of litigation and moving forward on foreclosure actions is going to vary based on the time that the attorney's office has invested in each case.
I don't want it to exceed an amount that the property's worth, because it's not worth. Here's case in point, that we've spent way more time litigating over a piece of property that's not worth as much as we've already spent.
And I get you, but here's the crux of the issue, and you're exactly right. The good news is we're a heck of a lot better than we were 4 years ago. I mean, we're light years ahead of where we used to be. But here's the problem. If we have a cutoff and say, okay, we're going to drop this case at this level,
You'll never get anywhere.
you never get anywhere.
Never get anywhere.
That means if I have a code enforcement action against you, you're just going to say,
I ain't doing nothing.
I'm gonna
Right.
sit back and I'm
No,
gonna wait.
I'm not. That's not what I'm.
No, but that's what I'm saying. That's the problem, is we have to take it on to foreclosure. That's the hook that we have to bring somebody into compliance.
Foreclosure action in this case brought this property owner to the table and back to his property to remedy the violation.
That's right.
Because it was not being remedied until he was served with foreclosure action.
And remember this too, if you have a low-value property that say it has a broke-down mobile home, if you do go to foreclosure, you've still probably inherited a liability. It's probably going to cost you more money to clean that thing up than it's worth. But again, to me, code enforcement serves a larger public purpose, safety, I think, and surrounding property owners' values of their land, I think there's some value to that, too.
I just want us going forward, and I heard you say it today, that you have a plan that's light years ahead of where we were in the way you run code enforcement now, and I'm pleased to hear that. I just want to make sure we don't fall in this again, and I'm sure we won't, but I think we got to do what we got to do here tonight, and that's settle it, like it or not.
It may be
Basically-
as simple as just a heads up or something. Hey, this thing is,
Well, one thing,
anyway, that's going forward.
one thing you got, if it had 3 liens and 4 foreclosures, whatever, if this property was totally encumbered with whatever, this property is not encumbered at all. We'll be first lien.
Pressing
He's back.
pressing your mute button.
Pressing my button. Anyway, this property is not encumbered, so we would be first on anything that happened. If it had a first mortgage of 5 and a second mortgage of 3, now that would be 8 and we'd be behind it. We're in first position on this. They can't do anything with this property without coming through us.
And we look at that in conjunction with staff. We look at those exact situations. If there was a lot of mortgages, we wouldn't have spent the time and money to go to foreclosure.
Well, this is a case where there's no mortgages, so we can be
Exactly.
first, we can be first in line when somebody gets paid.
Well, and it's not so much if there's a lot of mortgages, it's whether or not there's sufficient equity.
When we
So
look at that,
having low equity is the same as having a lot of mortgages with low
Yeah, I
equity.
mean,
So, I mean,
this property isn't worth $8,000. You're gonna spend more court costs just to get the, to get a piece of property worth $8,000.
True.
It probably cost you $3,000 in court costs just to get it. This is a way, let's
Yeah.
settle.
Let's vote.
I'd say if we gotta spend $5,000, maybe we should see if he'll sell it to us for $5,000, and we'll turn around and sell it, because we're taking a loss with the citizens' money, and the citizens didn't cause this. So, would you sell it for $5,000? And a release of lien?
I would prefer to just give you $5,000 and keep it, of course. In order for me to sell it, I have to move a lot of stuff off the property still. It's code compliant. I've had to build a fence. I put things behind the fence. So it would cost me a whole lot of money. I spent about $6,000 to remove the mobile home and put up a 10-foot high fence. So it is, I've put a lot of money into it now that, it would cost me a lot more to clear all that off.
Our motion stands, Mr. Chairman.
All right, we've got a motion, second. Do we have any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Aye.
Passes 3-2. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All righty, we've got the add-on infrastructure item under general business.
Thank you, sir. Greg. I need to talk to Greg. I'm sorry. Hold on just a second, Mr. Chairman. I used to get the check. Yes, this agenda item, we request the consideration of the draft of 2017 Adopted Infrastructure Plan. What we want you to do is, it's nothing to vote on necessarily. This is more along the lines of we're turning it over to you guys to look at it. If you got any questions, Cherie was the one that worked with Kimley Horn to compile it. What we've got is this is our draft version that we went through. We've updated from what we've done in the past. We've listed our accomplishments, as well as we have updated it with projects that we have heard of over the past 3 years since we adopted our infrastructure plan. So what we ask you to do is look at it, review it, let us know if you see any additions, deletions, or whatever you need to. That way we can bring it back in a final draft. But we want to make sure y'all give that information to us. So we're providing this to you so that you can give some information. So
I had a suggestion for the community center about adding a skate park possibility and then maybe some water feature. And I want citizens to understand, this is like us making a Christmas list to Santa Claus. This does not mean we're going to buy these things. Not doing that. Nobody's saying we're going to spend money on this or that. But if a grant comes along, the government loves plans, right?
that's right.
So it's got to be in a plan. So we got to put it in the plan just in case somebody says, here's some money, find something to spend it on, but it's got to be in your plan.
Well,
So that's the only reason I'm saying that.
That's a very good point, because what we try to do is cast with this plan is cast a wide net. if you may. And just like you're saying, some of this stuff we may never do, probably will never do.
Right.
But yet, if a grant comes up or is available, or there's a last second with the legislature, you can't ever tell. Sometimes they pick up the phone and they call and they say, hey, what about this? And if we've got it in our plan and it's part of our comp plan, all of a sudden, we're the next guy in line for that money.
Because the road portion is very vague, if you notice. It just says
Purposely vague.
Countywide repaving projects or countywide paving. I mean, that could be in Smith Creek, you know?
Yep.
You never know.
Well, the numbers are very vague also, and so.
Yep. And
On
that's on purpose.
Yes,
That's on purpose.
Motion to approve the draft version. You need a motion on it or just present it? Okay.
Want-
I'll withdraw my motion.
I'm sorry, my boss said yes.
I'll remake my motion then.
Second.
All right, we got a motion, second. Any citizens? Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Passes 5-0.
Thank you.
Is this not coming back?
Yes, it's coming back. Yeah, they're just considering it. Not sure why we had that.
Accepting it.
Well, you're not accepting it, you're just considering it, and then at probably the next meeting, we'll bring it back.
We're accepting this draft piece of paper.
Yeah,
Oh, I need a motion for that.
I don't either, but
But you got one, Jessica.
Very good. Like accepting a report. All right, we'll move into public hearings.
Accept the auditor's report?
Item number 14.
Yes, this is a request for the board's approval to conduct a public hearing and accept the designation of Grimes Cemetery as a historic site on the local registrar of historic
moved.
places.
Second.
Motion second. Any citizens?
It's a Sop Choppy project, right?
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Passes 5-0.
Oak Park project.
Oak Park Road, that's
15.
Leonard Tart project.
This is a request for the board's approval to conduct a public hearing and adopt an ordinance amending Chapter 11 of the Code of Ordinances pertaining to the substantial improvement definition as well as other defined terms in the floodplain management section of the code.
Motion to approve.
Do we have a second?
I want to hear the rest of it. I think the public needs to hear what it pertains to, and
Earlier this year, the board directed staff to amend the definition of substantial improvement, otherwise known as the 50% rule. In the last couple of years, staff has cumulatively totaled improvements up to 50% of the value over a 5-year period for non-conforming structures located in the floodplain. This ordinance will remove the 5-year cumulative total from the 50% rule. It's important to note that the 50% rule does still apply as FEMA requires the county to enforce those regulations. However, a cumulative total over a 5-year period will no longer be calculated. I'll be happy to answer any questions that the board has relating to the ordinance or provide more detail if necessary.
And also, we discussed at the meeting today, and I had some folks call me. I just wanted to be clear that there's no 1-year cumulative total either, which we did approve that, and then we came back at a later meeting and struck
amended.
the 1
I think
year.
what the confusion with that, if I could briefly try to be as brief as possible, explain it. The Florida Building Code itself still has a 1-year 50% rule, for lack of a better word, but it could apply to a house anywhere in the county, not in the flood zone. So if you have an old house that's not in a flood zone, you want to go do an improvement over 50%, you got to bring the old house up to code, electric, plumbing, structural as much as you can. You don't have to tear all the bricks off, obviously, and re-down the walls and bring it to wind load code, but I think as much as reasonably possible, you got to bring it to modern code. That would still apply. One of the things you may have to bring up to code if you break the 50% barrier is the flood elevation. So, but when I talked to the building inspector, the 50% rule under the building code only applies to one specific project. So in other words, he was saying, if you were able to get an addition done to your house, and it turns out that a few months later you needed a roof because a tree fell through it, that wouldn't count as a cumulative total because they're two separate projects. So it's a little in-depth, but, James explained it to me pretty well, and I understand it.
So I still have concerns over this and moving forward this until September because of our new CRS rating comes out in September. And we don't, because it's a whole new system, we don't know where our ratings is or will be and how important these 40 points will be. And so, it seems to me, unless there's somebody that's really hurting right now because of this, waiting till September so we can find out if we really need this or not would be the first step I would take.
I can tell you there are definitely people waiting for this to pass and will be in the office probably as soon as it goes active to make permits. I don't know if Summer can confirm that, but I personally know folks that are waiting.
Didn't we discuss the impact of that 40 points too?
Yeah.
Right now, it does not effectively, it doesn't have any effect on our rating right now. We have not received, because we haven't had a CRS review since the adoption of the 5-year language. So we are not, it shouldn't, as long as everything stays status quo with our review and ratings, it should not have any effect, because we're not reaping the benefits of those 40 points at this
And
time.
I do understand your point though, Chuck.
But we haven't, we haven't been rated under the current system, and so we don't know where our rating is going to be.
And when we see that, we may make changes on this or other things, who knows, but I think we need to see that first.
And you don't
before-
see any points till you hit at least 5 years, is that correct?
That's
You don't
correct.
get any benefit for a 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, 4 years.
No.
That's why it made sense. If they're gonna do the 1, might as well do 0.
Right. Very good. Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
This is 4-1.
Who was the second? I didn't hear a second.
Oh, wait a minute. We never got a second. So strike that vote.
Mike said it real quiet.
Second.
Carla?
I don't think he ever said it.
No, I didn't. I didn't.
He didn't.
Yeah. Okay, so now we have a first and second, so strike that last vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Passes 4-1. All righty, so let's go to planning and zoning, item number 16.
This is an application for a change of zoning R1703 in accordance with Section 24.01 of the County Code. Each commission member needs to disclose any ex parte communications you may have had regarding this application. Commissioner Hess?
This is, no connection.
No.
I spoke with the owner of the property.
None.
I think I spoke to the owner about it,
Okay.
casually. I spoke to the county attorney, sorry.
This is David Harvey?
Is she the owner?
Yes.
Yeah. I think David mentioned something to me about it.
Okay. If there's anyone here who is going to provide any information on this application, please stand up to be sworn. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Summer?
Yes, this application for change of zoning is a request to rezone from R1 Single Family Residential to C2 General Commercial on a 4.59 acre parcel located at 36 Oclotney Street. The Planning Commission on May 8th voted unanimously to recommend approval, and staff is also recommending approval. The advertisement for this public hearing appeared in the Wakulla News April 27th.
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a
Talk.
second. We have one citizen, Mr. Bob Danzy.
Don't talk us out of it, Bob.
My name's Bob Danzy, and I live at 43 Janet Drive, Crawfordville. I just want to support it. I don't think that you all had passed, maybe it was last meeting, or the one before, commercial zoning in that area. So to be consistent, I just wanted to show my support for this. And I am certainly not qualified to correct anybody, but Summer may have said 4 acres.
.4.
4, okay. I was just going to make sure y'all, that if you weren't aware.
Appreciate you correcting that.
It ain't 4 acres this there. It's
I
0.4.
heard that same thing.
Sorry.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. No more citizens, further discussion.
This is where we want to have commercial, this is where we want to build our downtown area, and it needs to be commercial.
Very good. Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Passes 5-0. Item number 17.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is an application for a change of zoning, R1704. So take a piece of
Make a
property.
motion to approve.
Hold on. If there's any ex parte communications regarding this application, please disclose them. Commissioner Hess?
Yes, the applicant called me.
No.
Spoke with the owner.
No.
Spoke to the owner, and I spoke to the county attorney.
Okay. If there's anyone here who's going to provide any information on this application, please stand up to be sworn. You guys are all still sworn? Thank you.
Very good.
This is a request for rezoning on a 2-acre portion of a 7.22-acre parcel from the agricultural zoning to C2 general commercial on property located at 158 Council Moore Road. On May 8th, the Planning Commission voted unanimously to recommend approval, as is staff. I'll be happy to answer any questions you have, and just for the
Motion to
record...
approve.
Second.
Okay.
Motion and a second. One citizen, Mr. Bob Danzy.
And just say ditto, Bob.
Yeah, really, I did just want to support business, support the growth in business, and that's what I want to say. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Further discussion?
You know, it's got significant buffers between this and residential, so seems like a really good project.
You and Bob working together now?
God, it really gets scary, doesn't it?
Welcome to the board, Chuck.
Very good. Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Passes 5-0. That ends our planning and zoning. We have no scheduled commissioner agenda items. County attorney.
Nothing that's not on the agenda.
County administrator.
Yes, I do. Got a list. Lake Ellen boat ramp. Want to let you know we still haven't heard from FDEP back from from their request. We sent them information. That's what we're waiting on right now, is their guidance as to whether they will allow a boat ramp to be installed there, and if so, what type of boat ramp. So we're waiting for that, and we're sitting idle on that until we get that word. There's no sense in spending anything on
They
that.
going to make the determination then that seems, it's not controversial to me, but if it's a public lake or not?
No, I can't speak for FDEP. Otter Lake Road is in progress, the resurfacing and putting the sidewalks in. The curbing went in, and the sidewalks will go next, and stormwater work has begun. Rock Landing Dock, just to let you know, we've closed it to vehicle traffic. Due to there's continued cracking in the concrete, it actually got worse in other sections. So the problem is it's over 10 years old. We're trying to look about going back against the engineer or the builder, but it's after that 10-year rule. So we're going to be negotiating with DEP on that to try to figure out what we can and can't do there, whether we can change the scope a little bit up.
What kind of cracking, just out of curiosity?
It's basically what happened is that the concrete cracked, and then it got into the
I was fixing to say, if it doesn't have enough cover over
rebar.
that steel, if that gets one little
It got in the
bit solid,
rebar, and it
rust the whole thing
it's
out.
gone. It just busted out in the bottom.
Busted out.
So anyway, that's something that's looming.
So the launch is not usable at all?
The launch is usable.
Okay.
It's just it was designed to have vehicular traffic go out on the pier.
Mm-hmm.
You can't do that anymore.
I got you.
Block that off. You can still walk on it, but
Okay.
no vehicular traffic.
So
over
it's
there.
popping in a straight line.
That's right. So if you hear of somebody, we have a Jersey barrier up there, but you can still walk out there. You can't go in there. So we
I
got
brought that to David's attention
Yeah.
a year ago.
A year ago, we had an engineer to go look at it. He did an evaluation. At that time, it was okay, but since then, it's deteriorated even further.
What you have happened with that pre-stressed foam concrete, it just has a section of wires, cables, about 2 inches up into the concrete. When it's over water, it absorbs the water.
Yeah.
The
2
cables
inches,
rust
not
and
enough.
break, and you have nothing holding that.
That's right. The problem is it was post.
Sorry?
They poured all that a lot of that in place.
So it was rich rebar, it's not pre-stressed concrete.
That's right. It's rebar, and what happened is what I understand. This is what we
No,
understand.
that's cable. With all due respect, that's
it's cable. It's cable rebar, but yet what happened was a slump. They put a bunch of water on it to go ahead and get it to pump way out there, and when you do that, that's what happens. So
You tell your engineer you don't ever put cables in over water.
That's right. So anyway, that's a problem that we got to fix, and we just happened Friday.
It was getting bad.
Did you put one of LB's blocks in front of it?
Huh?
Put one of the LB blocks?
All the cables that come
LB Brooks, one of his big concrete blocks?
Well, they pumped
No.
we got one of our Jersey barriers. We got Jersey barriers at Public Works.
What is that, the plastic thing?
No, it's the regular concrete
I'm not
Jersey
sure we're
barrier.
out of that 10-year period.
We're looking at it. We're just pulling up all the information.
That was put in after I came to town.
Okay. Well, we're thinking it was, but that's, like I say, we're getting all the information together. Sidewalk at the senior center is under construction. That's going. We've got, once that is finished, we've talked to Lee, and him and his crew is going to finish it out down actually between the community center and the senior living center that's their apartment.
Senior center, not the community center, right?
Senior center, I'm sorry, yes. Community, resurfacing projects, Ace High Stables Road, Lynn Circle and St. Mark's, Oak Street and Wakulla roads have been completed. Emily Lane should be completed this week.
Did you look at that other road?
We looked at the other road, and we'll talk to you about that one. Construction is well underway on Wakulla and Magnolia Garden Sewer. As you know, just about all the force main work is completed. There's a little bit of force main work now going on Martin Luther King Road that's going on right now. But other than that, they're starting the gravity sewer within the subdivisions now. So this is when it's slower, and you're cutting off homes.
What's the
stuff like
plan
that.
for Brim Fountain Road where we had to dig up?
Brim Fountain Road was dug up. We're going to be laying a force main down the middle of Brim
Right,
Fountain.
but I mean, you're going to go back and pave it?
Yes, we're going to pave
Not
it.
cold mix, right?
Not cold mix. Everything will get paved. Update with FDOT in the intersection 319 and 98. I talked to them. That was on Friday. They will have a plan to present to us here shortly.
30%
within about
plans?
2 or 3. This is on 319-98 intersection.
Okay.
As far as correcting the
Sorry.
right-hand lane. It looks like right now the right-hand lane will be cut off. You will not be able to go right onto Old Crawfordville Highway. That's what they're looking at. They looked at the turn lane, but they're also looking at just cutting it off
My
altogether.
buddy had to call me Sunday, I think. He said, he lives in Jack Crum Road. He said, you got to see these skid marks. Somebody apparently had a good time at the coast, hauling butt back to Tallahassee, gave it to Beans, and there's skid marks on Old Crawfordville Highway that go across the Turtle Pork Chop and go across the southbound lane and then jump over the medium.
Yeah.
So I guess they made it to the northbound lane.
Yeah, and they're also looking at three-laning.
They must have been going 70 miles an hour when they got
It's
it.
three-laning 319-98 northbound, where the turn lane is now, to cut the left turn lane. They won't cut it off, but they're going to stripe it to where you can't turn left. But then three-lane it to create a better median.
I think that would be a big help,
Yeah.
just to take out the mental picture of here's the
That's
old
right.
turn lane that's always been here, I'm going to turn left.
That's right.
Up
So-
at Mike's church, there were 3 red signs showing the stop of going north.
Mhm.
There's only 2 now.
That's
Somebody
right,
just
yeah.
ran one down.
They're studying that entire intersection, so they'll have that. And as you know, you're well aware of the change of speed limit on 98 at Spring Creek Highway. That's been changed. Marijuana ordinance, it'll be coming back to you guys in a meeting in July. We have one meeting in July. It'll be coming back to you to request for advertising, and that will begin about a 3-month process.
Right.
3 months process. Our ordinance, our current, we got to have something in the books by the end of October. So
even though the state did not adopt a statute, we still have to adopt an
well,
ordinance?
we're going to move forward.
Zoning.
It's for zoning, so
Okay.
we're going to go ahead and move forward. We still have time to, as the legislature's going to be meeting a special session, we can still get in whatever they need to get to do. But I'm not anticipating them to do anything on it either. So they did
Yeah.
the first time.
I heard this morning that they may not even take up
Yeah.
marijuana in the
Yeah.
special session.
Yeah, I think they're going to leave that up to the health department.
Right.
Fire and EMS building is under design and well underway. One of the things we're looking at right now, we're hoping to get the final plans back probably in August. But before we go out to bid, we got to wait for our grant agreement, because according to everything we can see, the $500,000 that they gave to us was not vetoed for that. It was for slurs. What's that?
I didn't see it.
Yeah, didn't see the veto, so we may have to delay the construction of that just a little bit to realize that funding.
What's
So,
the implication of that slurs veto?
what we're gonna do is, the idea is from the governor's office that since we're getting the Gulf Triumph funding, that let that be one of your first projects coming out of the chute. And so
That's the way they
we're
shift there.
we're gonna throw that as our first project coming out of the chute in Gulf Triumph, and and the fire EMS building, to go ahead, and I want to try to get the rest of the funding for the fire EMS building out of it.
Good news, though, is we did get $500,000 for that fire facility that we'd already committed to build anyway.
That's right, we'd already got half, and also, good news is the governor signed the Gulf Triumph, which is, if everything goes through for the next 15 years, is $63 million to this county.
Wow. So that's huge for us. Like I was telling Mike just now,
So,
we got that guaranteed
end of the day,
money.
If-
We had a
if-
couple
we
roofs
didn't,
out
we
of
didn't get $500,000, but we gained $63 million, so I'll take that.
Is that using, that's direct dollars?
No, that's,
Fine.
nothing's direct. That's through the legislature, so.
But no,
It's as direct as we
it's
can.
guaranteed.
Yeah,
It's
well-
the key. It's not, not gonna give us a check, but our allocation, maybe not all of it, but
In Wakulla
a
County.
portion of that allocation is guaranteed to
That's
come to
right.
us. In other words, it's not gonna all go to Escambia County.
That's right.
We got a certain amount.
Our
we're gonna
allocate,
get.
our allocating $63 million for our entire county, so,
And it's for the county, not
That's right.
specifically county government.
Right.
that's right.
Other entities can
Other
apply
entities
for it
can apply.
within the
Right.
county.
That's right. But we will get our lion's share,
Sure,
so.
absolutely.
Concern is whether we have any input into the other entities' projects.
Yeah,
The Triumph Board is gonna make the decision on them. I don't
Yeah,
know.
they ultimately make them.
Well, I know from the beginning, they're typically looking for a third project where you've got say if you got a private organization that's applying, they put up a third of their money, a third of local government money, and then or some government money, and a third of Triumph. That was the sweet spot, and I assume anything changed on that? Completely changed? Okay. If you like.
Oh, I didn't, Sheree, you were sitting in my blind spot. You were behind the pole.
That was on purpose. Yeah, the Triumph bill passed, and they did change a lot of the criteria. And so the Board of County Commissioners will be involved. The Triumph Board, when I went to the meeting in Panama City, there are 2 more members that need to be appointed, but they were going to hold off on that till the governor signed the bill, which he did last Friday. So we are looking at 2 new members, one from either Walton, Gulf, Franklin, or Wakulla County. One will be appointed by the President, Senate, and one from Walton, and one by the House of Representatives. And I know there are a lot of names that are in the pot.
The Speaker appointed directly?
Mhm.
Yeah.
And it won't be a politician, right?
No,
It can't be a politician.
not an elected politician.
Not an elected.
It can be a former one, though.
Yes, it can be former politicians. It says it has to be a business person in one of those counties. So anyway, we will have 2 new members. So we will have representation, hopefully, from at least one of the 3 counties, from Wakulla to Gulf. The board did not want to make any final decisions or even start talking about things that they had to vote on until the 2 new members were appointed and the bill was signed. So I'm sure that within the next 30 days, the announcements from meetings will be forthcoming. However, they did change the criteria. It's open now to K through 20 schools, which means that the school board is eligible to submit projects. They want the Board of County Commissioners to meet with the municipalities' elected boards, which would be the school board, City of St. Marks, and Sopchoppy for Wakulla County.
You've already reached out to them, right?
We have to do it more formally, though. I mean, like, we have to actually go to their board meeting and do a lot more, formal process and document it. And then they will provide us with an application of how they want the project submitted, what they're going to be asking for. And then we will, as staff, I assume we will pull that together and then present it to the board under agenda items.
With
to
some
start looking
general,
at that
just
stuff.
very briefly, some general criteria so people have some idea.
One of the items is for disaster preparedness, mitigation, which would be slurs.
Infrastructure.
Infrastructure is pretty specific. It says county infrastructure, and it also lists, buildings,
Roads or infrastructure,
roads.
sewer, water.
Which that
buildings.
is a big variance from the initial Gulf Triumph, what you were talking about, right? That was the big switch, was from the economic side to the infrastructure side.
Yeah. Yeah, it was all economic.
That's right, it was all economic. That was the major paradigm shift.
Trump did that.
Ad valorem reductions, like I say, STEM, under the university STEM classes, innovative ideas, things like that.
Science, technology, engineering, and math, for those not in the know.
Certification for employment. So they took out...
The ad valorem reduction, it's kind of funny to me how that is. You could do it one time. In other words, you could, instead of collecting 8 mills, I'm going to collect 6, but I'm going to take some of this Triumph money to make up the whole of my budget, and then next year it's going to go right back up to 8. So you don't actually cut spending, and so that just didn't really make any sense.
And a lot of
Not recurring.
A lot of the criteria and how they're going to address those issues was not in statute. So a lot of that will be up to the Triumph board to be more specific on how they're going to address that.
But if it's easy to qualify and get a one-time, then you've got that money that you would have.
We'll argue about all this later, but
Yeah.
if there's a way to spend it on something that we can, a brick and mortar building or a road, I'd much rather spend it on.
That's a better route.
I would much rather spend it on an asset than I had a one-time tax.
I agree.
So anyway, there's a lot we don't know until
Yes.
the board is finally formalized. They got to hire staff. They got to get a website. They're like a new business. They have a business plan, but they don't have a board of directors and they don't have staff. So until they do all that,
I agree.
we really, just know what's in statute.
We're just lucky to be at the
Stay
table
tuned.
on this one. Well, one last question. Any wild guess on when the money's going to start flowing?
The money will not start flowing to Triumph for at least 30 days. Triumph, you mean in terms of flowing to the county?
Available for competition?
I would say October at the earliest,
Okay.
but because they need to get formed.
Right.
And they
This
need
is
to get
always-
staff.
Well, I thought she was going to say April, because we were talking about that. It's going to be anywhere between October and April of
Right,
next
I would
year.
say that October is when we'll start seeing like the applications, and hopefully they will make some really fast decisions, and because I think they want to do some cherry picking and get the low-hanging
Yeah.
fruit. So some of the more complex projects may take longer, and hopefully some of the easier ones, say for instance slurs, would be number one.
Well, and that was part of what we were talking up as well, is if we don't get it there, we've got to get it here at Triumph.
I had always thought that Triumph was the name of a boat that was involved in the accident, but it's actually the name some politicians gave to a committee. Triumph is a committee.
It was corporation.
It was actually the Gulf Coast Economic Corridor Act, and they came up with the Triumph because it was a triumphant event to get these funds.
That's the name of a motorcycle, Mel.
Yeah, unfortunate event. So it's almost like
So
an
this
oxymoron.
this is a conduit to get this BP money out to counties.
Yes, and the BP money that was under the settlement for economic damages is just completely separate from the Restore Act.
Fines, it's separate money from the fines, the punitive fines, and the NERDA, which was the money paid up front, basically. It's really confusing.
And also, just history here, I think it was 4 years ago, the legislature tried to do an end run on this money and make the money flow through the legislature instead of through this Triumph Gulf Coast. Florida Association of Counties really rallied and fought that, and so, we're a member of the association, so it's important to know that, this has all come about because they helped fight and keep it flowing to the counties.
Well, and to give you an idea, this is we've started our spreadsheets and everything on projects and starting to break them down for each thing. Out of this act, if and I qualify that, big if all the funding comes and we get our share, legislature don't dive in, over the next 15 years, we're talking right at $90 million, a little over $90 million in funding for infrastructure.
And we can leverage that. The key thing is too,
could be, now understand, hold on, Jane, that could be 30 million to the schools, whatever that is, but still to this county as a whole, that's a big influx.
It's a big deal.
It's a big, and that's the reason we've been gearing up from a staff standpoint, like we've asked you guys. We see this coming and laying out these projects. I started backing off of when to submit projects just because even when we get the staff, we're not going to be able to handle it. So we were having to back load some stuff because we're just not going to be able to physically handle it in our office.
And from everything I've heard from the presentations at the Regional Planning Council, if that money isn't doubled by leveraging it, then there's something wrong. We
Yeah.
should be able to double. In other words, we'll use it as a grant match for say we get a 50% match for a sewer, we can use this to use our 50% match.
Well, and that's good to say. The problem becomes this. Your problem becomes, and this is what we're running into with the Gulf Triumph and with the consortium, is you say that, but we have to go in saying, because we don't know until we apply for the project. So you say, okay, well, we got to be able to fund it through Gulf Triumph, but until they award us that, then we can go after a matching grant, but we can't do it the opposite way. So it's going to take us, we got to get awarded these projects or the funding, and then we can go after that.
Y'all figure it out.
It's a
So
lot
it is an interesting matrix.
it's going to be sequencing and phasing, and then if you ever heard of Plan, Do, Check, Act, which is a big TQM word, but anyway, what you do is you plan, you check, you do, and then you're going to turn around, you're going to look at it again, and you're going to redo it, and you're going to phase, sequence, plan, do, check, act. And it's going to be a process that we are continuously going through, because as soon as we get one thing funded, then we have to start looking at leveraging, and then are there other pots of money available that we can go after sooner than we thought, or perhaps later than we thought, based on when a certain phase of a project is going to be done. And since the money is going to come in over a 15-year period, you cannot bond it at this point in time or borrow against it. So it's also a cash flow thing that David and Greg are really going to have to be on top of. So it's going to be a constant phase, sequence, plan, do, check, act, phase, sequence over the next 15 years. So we're trying to lay a good foundation now within the next 5 years, so that these projects will automatically have a path to follow. So that's our goal.
Yeah, and currently our plan, and realize that we haven't shared this with you guys, but we're playing Monopoly here. We're trying to figure out all this. We have about $38 million in Restore Act, Gulf Triumph consortium funding on projects over the next 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 years, but we have grant funding of about $13 million so far highlighted for that, to give you some idea of what we're looking at here. And that's over the next 6 years, and we haven't even refined this yet. But that's what I'm saying. We're having to look at what we can physically handle.
What I want to see you do, I know that we talk about buildings and roads and infrastructure and so forth. The most important part of the county is our young folks.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to see us fund a sports complex out of this money. That's an economic, if there's ever an economic, it's the seashore that we've got and a sports complex, because they can bring thousands. Ralph goes to tournaments that's got thousands of people every weekend.
I don't compete, though.
Pardon?
I don't compete.
But anyway, they bring thousands of people, and those people come in, and about the only thing they use is the restroom. But they spend lots and lots of dollars, and I want to make sure that when you're putting this stuff together, that you put a sports complex in there.
No, that's one of the things we're waiting to see the guidelines from Gulf Triumph, because the previous guidelines from Gulf Triumph, that was a definite no. But that's changed. So
economic benefit.
That's the only. I know it, but that's the pot that it'll fit in. We got to wait and see what those guidance are. But you're exactly right.
And if you would bring us up to date on those trade between the Forest Service, the land
We are
trade.
waiting on them. They were going to do a feasibility study.
Speak into that microphone.
They're doing
I'm
a
sorry.
feasibility study.
They're doing a feasibility study right now to find out, what it's going to cost us and all those things. And so we heard back from the Forest Service a couple of weeks ago, but they are on it.
That's a lot further than where we've been before.
Yeah, I understand we're about 2 down the road.
We were. Now we're back up on top.
On top.
That's
Very good.
The feasibility.
So we stay in touch. So if there's anything else, just let me know. It's Triumph it's going to move slow, and then it's going to bust loose, and we won't be able to keep up with it.
Next,
Good problem to have.
Yeah, we have some good problems. DPR, our Dewberry Pebble Rish, they'll be submitting a permit for the construction of the sewer line along South Chappie Highway. They'll eliminate Medak lift station in July, so that's well underway. So we're hopefully be taking care of that problem. River Sink well,
Main pump's gonna be then.
what's that?
Hickory Park gonna pump all the way to the
There'll be,
plant?
Hickory Park will pump all the way.
Station 8?
Station 8 will be we're gonna take the pumps out of Medark, take them to the Jerry Moore lift station.
Okay,
Take the pumps out of Jerry Moore lift station, take them to Station 8.
okay. And how are they,
And-
these three separate force mains, are you just gonna tie together?
They're tying to, we're gonna use the existing, 10 that's in there now.
Right.
It's gonna be for Panacea.
Okay,
And the 12 coming from here is gonna tie and check all Crawfordville and Jerry Moore lift
so
station.
Jerry and Hickory Park are gonna pump into the same
Yes.
12-inch main?
Yes, as they do now.
No concerns about back?
No, we've taken care of all that. We gotta adjust, we will have to repump put new pumps in at the library. The curve won't work there, so we gotta redo that one.
Now, the
But that's the
library
only
just
one.
pumps into the line, obviously, it's
Yeah,
not a repump.
Yeah, it's not that big a deal, but this will be a big deal for us, get rid of a big problem. Also, River Sink well relocation, we've agreed with FDOT on basically what they came to us, and I'll be sending you guys this, if I haven't already. I sent you a lot of stuff, and I can't remember whether I sent this to you, but they're offering up to purchase, they're going to purchase land up around the River Sink area, about 43 acres. I think the total purchase is about 60 acres. They're going to give the county 40 of that for a well field.
For what?
Well field. So we'll be able to put one well in there right off the bat, and they'll pay for that, and the relocation. Then it provides us at least 3 more wells, possibly 4 more wells, which makes that system a very valued system and also for our county. That's a very good thing.
If y'all knew the value of the well that we're losing to get this, you'd really go shake
Well,
David's hand
yeah,
after the meeting.
yeah, y'all, let's wait until the deal's done, and
Yeah.
then I'll tell you what
My
what
lips
was
are
struck.
sealed. I know what it is.
Trust me, it's well in our favor. So, Panacea I&I project is complete as well. That work went on and has been completed. Now we're going through the closeout. That's all I got.
Tell us about the ambulance, new ambulance grant.
Yes, due to the efforts of our chief of EMS, he applied for a grant. Well, he applied for a grant. Marvin Walters, he applied for a grant, and we received a grant for $150,000 on the purchase of a $200,000 ambulance. So that means that's a huge savings. So we're looking at getting that. That probably won't hit the streets until probably after the first of the new fiscal year. So that's a big thing for our
Good
county.
job,
We
Chief.
continue to look for money.
We got staff, I mean, do we need to add staff to take advantage of it, or is this going to just be a backup ambulance for,
No. We've already got it for that. We've already got the staff for
replace-
it. No, this is part of the grant is because we're increasing.
Increased capacity.
That's right, we increased our capacity. So, but that's going along well. Any other questions?
No.
Thank you for bringing that up.
Yes, sir. Citizens to be heard, number 2? None. Discussion items by commissioners? Close up.
I'll pass tonight.
Jerry?
I got a couple of items. Bob Denzi was speaking to us earlier. If you look what a nice tan he has, he's out on the oyster farm probably 5 days a week in the sunshine working oysters. He's one of our farmers, working very hard, he and his family. The oyster program, there's 6 new home buyers in Panacea that have bought homes from various parts of Georgia and Florida. These folks have bought homes to participate in the oyster program. Right now we have 36 farmers on the water farming oysters. Each of them's hiring about a person and a half. So very soon we'll have 100 people working on the water. They buy boats, they buy gas, they buy food. It's really working. We just put 800,000. The class that just went on the lease was 16 people, and they just put 800,000 oysters on the whatever. So right now we probably got somewhere between 3 and 4 million oysters in the water. So that program today is working good. It's employing people, it's giving jobs. There's jobs available. If you will contact the Panacea Oyster Co-op, there are jobs available. I think Ralph had a contact, and that person has a job. So we're really needing workers. You can enjoy the sunshine and the water.
It's a good way to put it. Enjoy the sunshine.
That's all I got.
Right, beekeeping. You can enjoy the warmth.
Yeah.
Summer sun.
I just have a question to see if you guys have any interest in this. Last week, I saw on Facebook, Hendry County now shows their board meetings through Facebook Live. You know, we know a lot of people participate through Comcast. That's a great thing. And I haven't even spoken to David about this. But
Neil wouldn't have a reason to come.
but you know, I mean, the technology is so easy now, and I don't know. I haven't looked into it, but I was just wondering if you guys would be interested in exploring that and see what it would take. And you know, it's just another way that we can communicate instantly to the public.
I'm not adverse to it. We got nothing to hide. So.
Yeah, we'll look at that and get in. Yeah, we can do that any way we can do that.
As long as I don't have to be a member of
Facebook. We're all about that.
Sounds good. No.
Oh, they won't be. Is there a thumb down sign they have?
Angry face.
Angry face, yeah.
No, I will not be watching
Look
that.
at our scorecard at the end of the night.
Instant feedback.
As long as I don't have to be a member of Facebook
Okay.
to do it.
Good deal. So we can explore that then.
Yep.
Very good. That's all I have.
Nothing.
I wanted to briefly share this with you guys. This is for the members of the audience. This line right here is the Lonnie Raker Road up there where people use it to get back and forth to work. There's the speed limit right here.
Tell them what section of Lonnie Road.
It is the section, basically I asked Jared to put it out between East Ivan and up to Bloxham Cutoff. Because I take my daughter to school, I'll go home that way just to avoid the stoplight. And I was amazed at how many cars. This is from the June 11th to June 17th. 20 cars.
It have to be May.
May, that's what I said, May 11th to May 17th.
Other June.
The speed limit's posted at 25, you know, mostly because it's got that dangerous jog in it right there around Brother Raker's Field. 20 cars drove from 0 to 35 miles an hour. 87 cars drove from 36 to 40. 818 drove 41 miles an hour or faster. So the posted speed limit is not realistic, okay? Nobody, the 85th percentile, sorry, I should talk about that. The 85th percentile speed, which means 85% of the people that were driving on that road either drove this fast or slower, was 53 miles an hour. The 50th percentile means they drove this fast or slower, was 47. So, you know, I've advocated for years that we need to try to go ahead and straighten out that dangerous jog and post a road at 45. That's what people drive. You can post it at 25, 35. I've seen people passing on that road. Somebody drives 35 miles an hour, they will get passed. So I'd like us to look at, there's only a couple small pieces of right-of-way we need to get, offer to buy it, so we can straighten that dangerous, like you know what I'm talking about, where it gets real close to the, I mean, literally 2 or 3 feet from a large oak tree that is the edge of the pavement. It's very dangerous, especially with people, we know they're driving 45 to 50 miles an hour. We know it. And so, I don't know if, is that good enough direction? I mean, I think there's been staff direction before to work on this.
Yeah,
hasn't
it's
there?
just, yeah, we've got it on a list and we'll do it.
Okay. Anyway, I just wanted to bring it up. Here's the hard data. You know, the posted speed limit's actually, I wouldn't say illegal, but it's not really enforceable. You could go to court and say, you know, DOT standard says you do not post it below the 85th percentile because people are going to drive the way they feel comfortable speed. That's all I got.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All right, we are adjourned. Thank you all for coming out tonight.
I have a real problem changing the road, speed of a road just because people